As always, it's really lovely to see so many people from so many far-flung places in different time zones. So thank you for joining us. And just to say welcome to, I think this is the 8th in our series of PhEminars, and it's just a fabulous network and space for us to share our feminist doings, our feminist post-humanist doings. And really, just for those of you who have not been before, the idea is that this is quite a relaxed space, that we have an opportunity to engage with the presenters' work, their ideas. We can have opportunities to speak with each other throughout the PhEminar. And it's really about sharing our praxis. So that's what the event is about and the series is about. If you have questions, comments as we go along, just pop them in the chat. That's absolutely fine. But Beatrice has built in moments throughout the course of today's event for us to have opportunities to chat with each other and to share our reflections and reactions and affects to her work. So I'm not going to take up any more time. I'm going to hand over to EJ to provide a brief introduction to Beatrice. So please enjoy yourselves, and let's get started.
Lovely. Thanks, Jane. Welcome, everybody. I'm really, really delighted to welcome Beatrice Allegranti, reader in dance movement, psychotherapy and choreography at Roehampton University. Really delighted, personally, really delighted as well. And hopefully you're all here to kind of really see and feel and watch and view and listen to Beatrice's films and presentations. She's got a lot to share with us. I had a lot more to say, but I also know that Beatrice is also going to introduce some of her work. She's got the most amazing website, so do take a look at that. It really brings everything to life, and it's just a treat to kind of wander through. We will be using Padlet again today. If that's new for you all, I'll introduce it before we get going. There will be some viewing. There's a film that Beatrice is going to share. So again, think about the space you're in, headphones if you need them, etc. But yeah, I'm absolutely delighted, Beatrice. Welcome, and over to you to introduce your session with us this evening.
Thank you, EJ. Thank you, Jane. I'm really, really over the moon to be here. A community close to my heart. So I'm very happy to be sharing a little snippet of my work this evening. So I'll jump into a PowerPoint for about 8 minutes. Let's see if I can get that. Oh, slideshow. There we are. You can see that hopefully in large view. Wonderful. Okay, so I just a little bit of context really. I, as you can see, have a bit of a transdisciplinary background. So my experience over the last couple of decades has been to work simultaneously as a choreographer and filmmaker. I'm also a UK CP registered dance movement psychotherapist and trauma-informed therapist, and a trans feminist scholar at the University of Roehampton. So when I'm not at Roehampton part-time, I'm involved in my own company work, which includes international dance theatre and film work, psychotherapy and consultancy. So I've worked across the dance and art sectors in the NHS and adult mental health, running therapy groups, and with grassroots and non-profit organisations. So conversations across disciplinary borders and spaces are something I know. So I wanted to start, before I jump into giving you a bit of context about the research, as background to the film, and the film is one strand of the research. But before I do that, I just wanted to position myself. As I position myself, I offer you this illustration. So I collaborate a lot with Neil Max Emanuel, an illustrator. And this is my PhEmaterial Mobius, obviously inspired by Ringrose and Hickey Moody and Reynolds and Osgood. And I use the Mobius image It's a specially commissioned obvious image that appears in one of my current publications as a starting point for discussions, usually when I teach, to really engage with the process of human environmental relations. And the Mobius offers a tangled ontology, or in Barrad's words, it's my ethico-onto epistemology in visual form. It highlights how we come to know through movement, affect, and the brain. And I'm working on a 3D version of this, so not quite there yet. But imagine this strip in motion, where inside and outside are continuous. And that leads towards a permeable sense of dynamic, dispersed, spatially and temporally specific relating. So obviously the upshot is that we are always more than our bodies, and we are, in Manning's sense, bodying on this sort of infinite interactive loop of language and biology, affect, cognition, body politics, power structures, the natural world, and much more. And a crucial aspect of this bodying process for me, obviously, and many feminists, is body politics, so the non-neutrality of our bodies and our unique and intersecting signatures of race and gender and sexuality, class, disability, age, home, space, place, technologies, all of this, and how that constantly impacts our daily lives. So I'm interested in how power, privilege, and also trauma are embodied, and how marginalized groups experience close and continued trauma through the systemic structures of oppression. And the work that I briefly present or contextualize here today is with families affected by rare young onset dementia. And it explores how we create a space to transform traumatic experiences of precariousness, vulnerability, and depression into states of possibility. So that project is the Moving Kinship Project. It could be described as a transcorporeal activism, or a transversal methodology that engages with the inseparability of bodies, culture, history, discourses, biology, and technology. And there are various partnerships. It's Arts Council England and Surrey Arts and Public Health funded. And I established hubs, moving kinship hubs for families affected by rare young onset dementia in 2016. And dementias, plural as an umbrella term, vary greatly according to each individual. The significant impairment in not only memory, but language comprehension and speaking, reasoning and judgment, and visual perception are seismic, embodied affective shifts. And the hubs have been in London, with variations in Norway, and workshop variations thereof in Japan, new commission across Surrey for 2021-22, and one planned Northern UK hub, and also a further hub in Australia planned for 2023 in collaboration with the University of Melbourne. So the aim of the hub, just to give you a kind of a brief insight, is to create bespoke dance theatre performances for and with families affected by rare young onset dementia, or early onset dementia. It can be described in two ways. It's also the focus of my current book. And what is the hub? Well, it's a place of possibility, of learning, of hope, a place where we pay attention to the moving, expressive body and to creative processes in advancing issues of social justice and health. And it offers a transdisciplinary artistic psychotherapeutic methodology that supports in creative and embodied ways the mental health of families affected by young onset dementia. And I have a 3-step process. I've written about this, and I'll send you links so you can kind of read if you're interested and follow up in more detail about that process. But in brief, it involves interview conversations where I visit people in their homes. the hub of intimate relating. With these interview conversations that usually focus on people's life experiences in the present, what they carry with them now with this new experience of young onset dementia, whether they're the person with the diagnosis or a family carer. And I take that material and the interview conversations into the studio with my team of professional dancers and a composer. And we create a bespoke performance for each family. We then come together in the hub and show families what we've created for them. And we found this process of witnessing and being witnessed, the tangle of that, incredibly evocative. There's a radical intimacy in the process. It highlights how autobiographical dementia stories also chime with wider socio-political taboos about what constitutes kinship, identity, age, loss, language, and care. And also, of particular interest to me is the kinship that not only emerges between people moving together, people dancing together, but also its ethical and political dimensions. And with the ever-shifting process of relating, with the kinesthetic material itself. So kinesthesia is the sense of movement. So the relating with the material itself, the affective kinesthetic relating. We've had an online hub, of course, somebody's wanting to be admitted. Okay, I don't need to let them in. We've had an online hub this year, and that was, it's mediated, of course, but there's a whole story behind that, which I won't go into now. But there's a little snippet and a film link to that on my website, so I can send you that to follow through. I think it's also worth saying that two members of my professional team have parents who live with, who have one parent who has lived, who sadly died 2 years ago, and another who has a parent who lives with young onset dementia. And overall, the project since 2016 has also spanned the deaths of 3 parents, including my own father. And we're working on emergence together. As a team, we're doing the work of grief and loss as it's impacting us individually. And we're also reconnecting with who we are now during a global pandemic. And so this tangled relating with families that underscores the project is also supporting us to do the work. And just to finish off, the project has given rise to a variety of knowledge exchange and impact activities, various publications, of course, a welcome consultancy with the Arts and Science team, the Created Out of Mind Arts and Science team, CPD, work for carers and clinicians. And the newer strand, which is being developed currently, which is a neuroscientific strand, which migrated from another project that I've been working on with a long-time collaborator of mine, neuroscientist John Silas, or a neurofeminist, I should say. Anyway, that's also another conversation. Also part of this project is the 75-minute dance theatre production, I've Lost You Only to Discover That I've Gone Missing. Of course, influenced by Judith Butler's sense of description of the sense of dispossession that we feel with loss. And that is currently touring. We managed to finish that and upscale it at the end, right at the end of the second lockdown. And the work is, it pulls together a lot of the bespoke material that we've created for families. And it's a legacy of people's experiences and stories. It invites wider audiences to bear witness to the tensions of our entanglements with others, as well as acknowledging embodied resistance to socio-political taboos about loss and intimacy. And then This is what we also completed at the end of the second UK lockdown this year. What a joy it was to come together again. Moving with the Trouble is a short film which you are about to see. It's literally just been cut and was released in September. It's currently touring internationally. And I'm delighted to have this private viewing here in this context. And it presents, it's from the legacy of the live work. It's site specific or site responsive. It presents 5 site specific solos that combine spoken word, dance, and an original sound score from Robert Howard to reflect on the wider issue of transgenerational mourning, the bonds of resistance, and our infinite relationship with the more than human. And it bridges individual losses with wider notions of ecological mourning. So I'm going to put all of the links in the chat, and then I'll set up the film. So one of the things that I will invite you to do after the film is to notice your own affective responses, and I'll do a very short guided somatic introduction to that and give you time for that. Notice 3 things really: your breath, your bodily sensation, and perhaps any micro movements. It might be in your extremities, might be in your face. Feel free to turn your camera off. And I'm just going to say a few things. They will land however they will land. My words will land however they will land. Just as guidance, should you wish to take anything on board, and give you an opportunity to perhaps write or draw or simply notice what's going on in your body after watching. And as you pause, perhaps notice how you're sitting. Perhaps you can sense your heartbeat or the rhythm of your breathing. Simply notice without altering it in any way. Bodily sensation. Perhaps you're able to locate somewhere in your body, your head, your stomach, your lower back, your little finger, your hands, your heart. Perhaps you're able to locate somewhere in your body where there's sensation, where you notice sensation. And when you engage with sensation, notice perhaps you hear something, or you smell, you taste, or you see something. Or perhaps you have a sense of touching something. Notice perhaps what flirts with you from your environment. What's the sense of kinship that you have with the environment that you're currently in? And simply welcome a sensation into your body. Notice any micro movements. Perhaps there's changing levels of muscle tension as you sit or stand. Perhaps there's micro movement in your face or your hands or your fingers. Notice the space between your shoulder blades. the openness of your chest. The contact that your feet have with the ground, perhaps. The softness of your knees. Simply be curious about any micro movements in your body. And come back to noticing yourself sitting in this moment. And you might want to capture some of these sensations, movements, affects in words or drawings. We'll just give a little bit of time for that, another few minutes for that. We just pop back in. Thank you so much for the breakout people that I was with. Thank you for your wonderful insights. And I wonder, I would like to have been in every breakout room. That would have been a feat of multiplicity, wouldn't it? Time traveling. So a little bit of time to notice together. If there's anything that you wanted to share in the wider group, some wonderful noticings in our group, and I'm sort of excited by the responses, excited and moved equally by the responses that came up. And it might be a felt sense response, it might be an image, it might be a sensation. It doesn't have to be a coherent sentence.
I mean, it was Sid and I were in a group of two, and we just was kind of discussing how much there was, how packed the film was, and how at moments overwhelming. Both of us were brought to tears at different points, but also the the space, you know, that building, and the way in which it captured lockdown so powerfully, and but also this kind of openness and connection to what's out there, that's kind of almost graspable but not, and uncertain and distant and close, and yeah, just incredibly kind of evocative and really disturbing kind of resonances with lived experience, but also, you know, kind of the ongoingness of it. So they were some of the things that we both sensed and felt, and yeah, and kind of actually I could feel in my body temperature, you know, at one point I was shivering, and then brought to tears, and then feeling really hot. That could be the menopause, but I don't think it was. I think it was definitely the power of the film. But it was absolutely incredible, you know, really quite, yeah, kind of otherworldly. And I guess that was the point. And one other point that we were raising, not as a criticism but as a kind of question really, is the use of the spoken word towards the end, and what was the kind of thinking behind that, or the decision, because we're both quite well versed in post-humanist, feminist, new materialist theory, so it was like, it was welcome, but it wasn't altogether necessary. I suppose what was the logic or the thinking behind bringing the spoken word in?
Shall I respond now rather than gather? Yeah. First, I want to just acknowledge what you were saying about feeling moved to tears, and similar stronger responses also in our breakout room and in other forums. And one thing I think that I'm really struck by, and also, you know, as an artist, but also as a psychotherapist, understand that there's a parallel process that's being evoked with understandings of loss and mourning, and also dementia. So the feeling of, you know, that's something that came up in our group, of not knowing, of feeling uncomfortable, of feeling moved, of feeling shivery, or all of these things, feeling overwhelmed. You know, this is the process. This is the work of grief, of mourning. So that, you know, the fact that it evokes that parallel process is important. And we all go into our own individual lockdowns in different ways through the experience of grief and mourning. And it is incredibly unique. And yet there are shared components. And so that leads me to the words. So I wrote those words, and you'll hear other feminist voices in there too. For various reasons, and some of which are clear to me now, and some of which remain unclear. The clarity comes mainly from the feminist voices, bodies, guidances that I feel have supported me at times in my life when I've needed support, and not only intellectual support. I mean, you know, I've gone to Audre Lorde, you know, for comfort at times, to understand something about the process, for example. So there's that, and so I call them forth. At this point. I wrote this also towards the end of the second UK lockdown. And I think, you know, I'd sort of come out of my own period of mourning and grief, and my own lockdown after my father's death, and then into a global pandemic and another different kind of lockdown, and experienced also the death of several other people close to me. So there was something about introducing words as part of, you know, as we know, part of the material flows of the experience, without needing to necessarily explain, but to just touch on some key words that could offer people who perhaps are not so comfortable with watching dance and affective unfoldings in non-linear ways a little bit of a hook. Because I don't want to alienate people, and I think I have, obviously I'm interested in the relationship between the non-verbal and the bodily expressive and language, and I wanted to try and have them in a sense in a continuum. And then there's something about they come also from the live performance. There's something about having the narrator hold that process and those words. So I'm not sure if I've answered that. I mean, feel free to ask me more about that, but that's it. That's for now. But yeah, I feel like when we do the live performance and those words also. No, I'm not going to say anything more. Spoiler if you ever come to the live performance. Anyway, they appear somewhere in the live performance, but it's a much more immersive experience. So I'm playing also with the idea of bringing the words in earlier and at different junctures, so that they're, just to play with that a little bit. But yeah, anyway. Any other thoughts or wonderings or images or anything that came up for you that you'd like to share? Yeah, words to hook onto, yeah. Because, with whatever words we choose, as we know, I mean, everything is not neutral. The bodies that we see, the words that we use, of course. So, but they're going to be hooks for some people, they're going to be repellents for others, right?
I like to add on that about that the last part of the words. Like really, I can understand how Jane said that. I was wondering that kind of question: how come suddenly, kind of clear guidance pop up? But at the same time, I told Beatrice the whole film, I was so uncomfortable and I was so confused. I just almost like my feeling was, I want to get out from here. And then like it just keep feeling it. When can I get out? And when this film is finished, like it's a beauty at the same time, because I didn't like my feeling of the whole process. Then when that lady start talking, I feel like for metaphorically, I was deep in the ocean and I couldn't breathe at all. And when pop, then I feel I can breathe now. Like it's same as that the one person who, when they breathe, that exactly the kind of feeling I had it when she started talking. So it's really, I confused, and I was wondering too, how come suddenly it's clear view is here, but at the same time kind of, you saved me, like kind of feeling too. It's really really interesting, like whole few minutes experience. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, because we spoke about that sense of discomfort also, again, being a wonderful parallel process, and that sense of not knowing is prevalent in states of overwhelm, in mourning and loss, but in dementia, very much so. The unfamiliar, the kind of sense of not knowing who I am and who I am relating to, what I'm relating with. And we also spoke, didn't we, about that sort of, how that discomfort is, if I'm speaking, aesthetically, and not only, also psychotherapeutically, I want to frame the discomfort in a way that it can be acknowledged, recognized. Not everybody's going to recognize it all of the time. Perhaps a glimmer will be recognized, but the framing of it, the aesthetic framing of it, allows for some sense of metabolization, if you like. I think.
We loved we had so much to, we started off saying we didn't want to talk, and we're just feeling it, and then we just talked a lot. But we focused on so much, didn't we, Alison? And I think Florinda just had to leave there. But I love the way we talked about how you were zooming in on very small moments, so a hand or something, you've got a sense of vastness of space with the building and the history and the situation. I'd love the place that you chose to do that, to perform in that space. It was so amazing. But then to go right down into the dirt, so you got all the particles, and then you got the small hand movements, and there was just so much. Like, it was totally packed. You kind of want to just feel the film, maybe watch it again, and then really slow it down and watch little moments of it. There's just so much in there that allows you to really feel what these bodies are feeling. And I like the fact that it was stripped back, so you could really enter into quite an uncomfortable space. You could really bring yourself into lots of those different movements, and then some movements were unfamiliar, maybe others were very familiar. So it was so powerful. But we were kind of heavy with the affect of it all. But it was amazing to watch. Thank you for sharing the film with us in this space. I really wish we could be there with the people, but even on a screen and Zoom.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, in person. Yeah, to show. Yeah, it's a different feeling, isn't it? And I think what you say about the tactile kinesthetic is so important as well. This came up in our group too, and that it's important for me when working. Well, obviously live it's very different. We can have a sense of that in a live performance, but in film it's very important for me to personally to capture that haptic sense, to capture the tactile kinesthetic import of the material. So I'm a big fan of close-ups, but also, if we just take what I've just said metaphorically or zoom it into a different situation, when I'm working with families affected by young onset dementia, it's the tactile kinesthetic engagement that is the way in. It's a way for us to zoom into the relationship, to maintain the relationship when language changes.
Really felt that. And the colours were amazing. How you work with colour and materiality, it was, very, it just felt so carefully choreographed. You really felt, we were just talking about the team you must work with, the fact that, you've got lived experience that's brought into the practice. You're also kind of theoretically engaged with this. It just felt like such an incredible team that you've managed to pull, to bring this together. And I really felt that everything felt very, very considered, and not in a artificial strategic way, in a very embodied way. Even if you weren't sure what maybe you might have thought at that moment, it was the thing to focus on it, or that was the sound, the composer who created which I loved, really loved the music, the rhythm of the so much. There's so much.
There's a little story behind that, actually, and that, yes, the team is amazing. I will say that. We've been working together for some years now, and we've all been through a lot together. So they're an extraordinary team. The musician is not the same composer that I work with for the live version. That's Jill Halstead, who's a feminist composer based in Norway. But the composer for the film, Rob, is actually a young musician who's recently, a couple of years ago, graduated from Goldsmiths. He's like this genius young musician, and he's our composer and musician for the hubs, working with the families. So he carries all of that with him, and he's just delightful.
Does he play live? Does he respond in music? I mean, that we've done. That is such a powerful way. It's such a talent. But it's quite incredible when you can be in the room and someone can create music to interact and dialogue with whatever is happening in the space. And it felt like that music was doing the same job here.
Yes.
Rather than now create a 10-minute soundtrack. It wasn't that. It felt like this is someone who can actually respond to the movements and the feelings.
Absolutely. He's very and actually the kernel of that whole 24-minute work comes from a 5-minute piece with one of the hubs that we did, the online hub this year, actually. And this A note, I wanted the A note all the way through, but it's a lifeline.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah. I wish there was more. I'm sure there is, but how you create soundtracks to films, how that actually works, and what sounds we work with to do that work. Amazing. I love moving with the trouble too, Sid.
Well, if you want to all watch it again, it's just been officially selected for London International Short Film Festival, starting on the 26th of November. But I can, there's a whole load of links actually that I wanted to put in the chat for you. But
we can, Beatrice, have you become a PhEMA member on our website? Because it's lovely to have all,
yes,
put all the links in there as well.
I will, absolutely. I'm sorry, I haven't done that yet. Yes, I keep meaning to, and I will, absolutely. I have every intention of doing that. I would love to be part of what network. Just pull those links up for you now. You can have it in measure. There's some more.
We can probably add them, can't we, when we share the video, Sid?
Yes.
Add them.
Exactly. Yes, you
We
can.
put them in the Padlet.
Oh yes, of course. I was wondering.
I'll do it.
The live performance. Oh yes, the live. So I'm just looking at the chat now. I realise there's a whole load of comments and questions. Thanks everyone. Well, I'm a bit behind here. Yeah. That's somebody that's left. Live performance, yes. So we had the preview, Kate, in September, the preview performance, and we're just trying to find the right kind of venues in London and other places to who are sensitive to this kind of work, where we can have an immersive performance. So we've been talking to some sort of mainstream venues, and we'll see. But yes is the answer. Watch this space. Sid, and I also talk about how while staying with the trouble does certain things, we like moving with the trouble. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that that's of course. I just feel like it's all about movement for me. It's all about movement. We just, it's about moving with everything. We're always moving, so it's that's important to get that message across somehow.